Back in 2013, while selling final expense insurance face-to-face, I was doing great, averaging just under $15,000 of annualized premium sales each month, and then the light came on. After making just a few minor changes, I ended up writing over $35,000 in AP every single month, all face-to-face. In this video, I'm going to share exactly what I did and how it made me one of the highest producing final expense agents in the country. And the good news is, guess what, guys? It is totally duplicable. I'm also going to share some mistakes that we had to learn from so that you don't have to go through all of that. After you watch this video, you're going to be able to take our system and do the exact same thing and possibly even do better, even do more business. And this is when I'd like to invite you to give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to our channel, go ahead and subscribe. We've got some really good content coming out over the next several weeks. Back in the day when Mariana and my wife Mariana, first started selling final expense, we were told by our upline, you know, our manager, to just take the leads to the prospect's front door and then talk our way inside. And that's exactly what we did for several months. No calling to set appointments whatsoever. And speaking of setting appointments, if you'll stick around until the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to get a copy of our appointment setting super file. And this thing is pretty cool. It's got scripts for setting appointments from like direct mail leads, telemarketed leads, and even those hard to reach over the phone Facebook leads. Again, we made a lot of mistakes, and when I look back, by making the mistakes that we had made and learning from them, it really did make us a lot stronger at door knocking and even better at closing the sale. Therefore, inadvertently, some mistakes were pretty good, but there is one mistake that I gotta say, guys, this thing literally cost us probably millions of dollars, which I'm gonna get to shortly. Our first mistake was to work leads in our local area. This was bad because we didn't realize how hard it would be to sell final expense insurance in the big city, you know, in our local vicinity. You see, guys, back then, Mariana and I lived smack dab right in the middle between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, the land of the meanies. People were not letting us into the house, and even when they did, they were kind of rude and just didn't want to buy. And since like half of our leads were in condominiums and maybe gated communities, you know, with most of these folks, we couldn't even get to the front door, and we ended up just like throwing a lot of these leads away. It was pretty bad. Now, I do want to tell you about one positive thing that came from our struggles, you know, the stuff we were going through while we were trying to sell in the city. When we did finally get in the house to make our final expense sales presentation, because most of the people that we were meeting with in the city were kind of rude and hard to sell to, we got really good at selling insurance. And by the time, you know, that we figured it out that our area was not good for selling final expense, we ended up doing really, really good, you know, when we eventually did start traveling and working in those smaller cities and more rural areas. Something that you can do to avoid wasting your time and money is to make sure that the area you're getting leads in is not full of condominiums or gated communities. And guys, to take it one step even further, and this is the gold, even though you don't want to hear it, you are better off driving, in most cases, 2 or 3 hours away to work small towns and more rural areas than to just try staying local, you know, selling final expense in those major metropolitan areas if that's where you live. People in the big city are a lot more savvier, and they kind of think that they know more than you do, even when they're clueless. Let me just say it, from my experience, it is of my opinion that city folks are just harder to sell than like people that live in smaller towns and rural areas. I mean, guys, that was the conclusion that we came to after doing this for months and failing disastrously, you know, while trying to sell in that Miami, that Dade County, and that Fort Lauderdale, like / Broward County, and even West Palm areas. Once we saw how much easier it was to close sales outside of the city, we rarely worked local leads and basically worked like the rural areas of Florida for, I'd have to say, at least our first 7 years in the business. In 2019, we had our dream house built right in Central Florida so that we could be like right smack dab in the middle of where all of our clients were or are, and also smack dab in kind of like the easier places travel-wise to sell insurance, and which really makes our driving time nothing now for, like, you know, when we go back and sell our existing book of business, you know, we want to hit them up with the Medicare Advantage. Another thing that was a pretty big game changer for us, and guys, this all goes like hand in hand, was that we were increasing our weekly leads as time went on. Like, we didn't just stick with the bare minimum. We kept upping it and upping it. The minute that we figured out how selling in like the rural areas of Florida was definitely the way to go, I started dropping as much mail as humanly possible. And while we were doing this, we were consistently searching for a decent direct mail leads vendor that could give us a guaranteed fixed cost on our leads. And that was really difficult. The issue with doing the mail drops ourselves was that the returns kept getting worse and worse, and at one point we ended up paying like over $50 for some of our leads. I actually did one mail drop where I dropped like a few thousand pieces to check out this one area, and the returns were so bad I ended up paying over $100 per lead. Don't worry guys, thankfully you don't have to worry about that. You know, nowadays we do work with a mail house that gives us like a guaranteed fixed cost lead, you know, and they've got a variety of verbiage, leads from like $30 to as much as $40. And as soon as we found these guys, we went from working like 20 leads each week to like 30 leads to 40 leads to eventually realizing that, well, when you have a lot of leads to work, you can call the leads and set appointments. Duh. And in the beginning, Mariana and I, you know, we weren't as good at setting her appointments. I should say she wasn't as good at setting her appointments as I was at setting mine. So I did end up setting appointments for both of us for a while. And she eventually got better and better as time went on. And, you know, we started looking for a good assistant / appointment setter. The first couple of setters that I trained really had a hard time with the appointment setting process. However, you know, since we were setting our own appointments, I kind of knew what to expect. I really didn't expect them to be that good, at least not as good as me. I wasn't looking for someone who could set as many appointments as me, but I was shooting for, you know, close. You know, someone that I could train, someone that I could work with, that would listen to me and actually learn, and that's exactly what happened. FYI, guys, there is no appointment setter in the world that should be better at getting more appointments per batch of leads than you know, the insurance agent who is actually paying hard cash for those leads. If you're thinking, well, you know, I'm terrible at setting appointments, so I need to get an appointment setter, forget it, guys. That's probably not going to work. The trick is to have lots of leads and to be actively up and running first. Then as you work in your appointment setter, they eventually take over the appointment setting part altogether, or at least for the most part, and now you're like tag teaming the leads. The appointment setter is booking up your days, and you're running appointments while, you know, door knocking in between the set appointments. And another thing, guys, if you're thinking about getting an appointment setter, you know, doing this while you're only working like 20 leads each week or so, that won't work either. I mean, just forget it. And when I say leads, I mean direct mailers. That will work if you have enough, but like Facebook leads and appointment setters, they don't mix. It's hard to get the Facebook leads to answer the phone. Remember, my system, the one that I'm describing, is designed to work with at least 40 or 50 exclusive leads each and every single week. At one point, Mariana and I were getting between like 60 and sometimes even over 100 leads per week, and I know that sounds crazy, and we'd even get them to build up when we went on vacation and came back. But With a really good appointment setter like the one we have, you know, what she was able to do is she was able to set appointments from like 1/3 of the leads, sometimes even close to half. Another thing that we had going for us was that the two of us, you know, both Mariana and I, we're both selling final expense. We were both field agents. So when the client couldn't see me on like the day I was traveling to that area, they could possibly see my wife, you know, the next day on her day. We rotated days to make it easier for our setter to help book us up on all of our field days. And at one point, I was running right around 12 appointments per day, 2 to 3 days per week. I know that sounds crazy, but that's how we did it. I didn't spend too much time with the clients. And the thing is, guys, when you're writing 5, 6, 8 applications per field day, your life will change. Trust me, ours did. Within like a year from, you know, entering the final expense business, we went from being in debt, and that's how it was when we started, and even digging ourselves more into debt, to having like everything paid off, and we were able to start saving money for the new house. After our first couple of years in the business, I attempted to take the AHIP test so that I could sell Medicare Advantage. Yeah, I struggled with it and I gave up, and then I did the exact same thing a year later. It was difficult for me, it really was. You know, I started the AHIP process, the process of taking it, and then I kind of just like threw in the towel. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because I had the foresight to see that Medicare Advantage sales was a big game changer, especially in addition to final expense. I just didn't have anybody to help me to get started, and I kept getting frustrated and quitting, which is why when I look back, this probably cost us millions of dollars, and you know, my lack of persistence and effort at that time probably was the biggest career mistake that I've ever made. Thankfully, guys, you never have to struggle like I did, and or go through all that nonsense and give up and surrender, you know, the way that I did. We actually have people that work for us and with us that are there exclusively to help you, to help our agents get through the entire certification and training process. So now, like anybody with a life and health license, you know, you got to have the health part of the license, can sell, you know, can like market to, you know, our seniors and sell those type of senior products at a really, really high level with our platform. And yeah, we even pay the full commissions and have an exclusive direct mail leads program. And we even do something that nobody else in their right mind is doing. Yeah, what's pretty cool is we give our agents a $75 lead credit for every Medicare Advantage enrollment that they do, you know, that they sell, they place. And since we have our own exclusive direct mail Medicare Advantage leads, most agents that work our system aren't even paying for their leads. Our training is unlike anything that you've ever seen, and when you're ready to start selling, I will get you in the car with one of our super producers so that you can see for yourself how easy it is to sell Medicare Advantage at a really high level. Guys, for a copy of the appointment setting super file that I mentioned earlier in the video, just email me at doug@ufesonline.com. For more information on selling final expense and or Medicare Advantage and other Medicare products too through us as a completely independent insurance agent, just shoot me an email at that same address. Remember, guys, when you put the needs of your clients first, everything else will usually fall right into place. Now get out there and do something good for someone today. Happy hunting.